Okay. Very good afternoon to everyone. I, Rajendra Pawar, Faculty of Civil Engineering, Department, DSV Karad. It's my privilege and honor to introduce today's our distinguished resource person for the sixth session of this ATAL FDP, Engineer Aditya S. Gaikwad, sir. Engineer Aditya S. Gaikwad, sir, is a highly experienced civil engineering professional with over 15 years of international experience in project planning, scheduling, reporting, and project control across a large scale EPC infrastructure, water, utilities, and energy projects. He holds a bachelor degree in civil engineering and master degree in construction management and is a certified project management professional PMP. He is currently based in Sydney, Australia, and is a permanent resident of Australia. At present, Mr. Gaikwad is associated with Transgrid Australia, the owner and operator of New South Wales Electricity Transmission Network, where he works as a program and risk planner. In this role, he support planning, cost forecasting, earned value analysis, risk management for some of the most complex power transmission projects in Australia. His professional excellence and collaborative approach have earned him recognition as a delivery award finalist. Prior to this, he has worked with a reputed multinational organization, including Vincia Private Limited, Gulfar Engineering and Contracting, L&T Limited, and Kirloskar Brother Limited, India. His global exposure span projects value up to USD 80 plus million, involving water treatment plant, oil and gas facilities, and utility infrastructure. He has successfully carried out extension of time and delay analysis, resulting in significant cost saving and avoidance of liquidated damage. Mr. Gaikwad possesses strong expertise in Primavera P6, MS Office, Earned Value Management, Schedule, Health Check, Risk and Check Management, Forensic Delay Analysis. His professional interest lies in bridging industry best practices with academic learning, making him a valuable resource person for FDP focus on construction planning, project management, and real world engineering application. In addition to industry experience, he has published a technical paper in international journals and authorized books on retrofitting of RCC column using FRP overlay, reflecting his commitment to research and knowledge. He is also a professional civil engineer registered with Engineer Australia. With his blend of academic orientation and extensive industrial exposure, Mr. Aditya Gaikwad brings practical insights and global perspectives that greatly enrich this FDP. Now, I respectfully hand over the session to Engineer Aditya Gaikwad, sir, and invite him kindly share his knowledge and expertise with us. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajendra. Thanks for your introduction. It was so sweet to hear from you. So first of all, good evening to everyone. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this session. Just to confirmation, I hope my slides are visible to everyone. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Your slide is visible and you are audible also. Thank you.
Okay, great. Fantastic. That gives me a little bit confidence that, okay, I'm good to go now. So yeah, today's topic, which I have been, I'll be presenting is geohazard risk analysis by assessing the landslide vulnerability in our Western Ghats, India. And could also make a special thanks to our sponsor like AICTE Training and Learning Academy, ATAL, who has also given me an opportunity on this. So this is the agenda, a brief agenda, what I'm looking after in this session. We'll run through the introduction and the context of this topic. We have a geohazard risk analysis, some of the assessment methods, and then how do we use that into our project controls and integrate that into our risk registers and help us to populate or consider those things into our schedules and programs in the infrastructure space. With this, I would also be presenting some case studies, a couple of case studies. One of them is from India and another one is from here in Australia. And yes, some of the monitoring and early warnings, which will help us to identify some of the risk and help us to deliver a resilient projects in today's fast-speaking world. So, as Mr. Rajendra has introduced me, yes, pretty much aligned to him, and I accept whatever he has introduced to me. Just a few things like, yeah, my name is Aditya Gaikwad. I have around 15 plus years of experience into infrastructure and delivery of those projects. I have been working in India like for 5 years, and then moved to Middle East like around 8 years, where I was looking after oil and gas projects. And then over here, I'm into a big organization called Transgrid, which is responsible for the entire New South Wales electricity transmission networks. So it pretty much aligns the topic of our today's agenda. So um, as you can see, this second point says about the Western Ghats. Pretty much, I'll be emphasizing on the World Heritage Site, which has been declared by the UNESCO, and we'll be looking at some vulnerabilities in those regions facing the landslide, and which affects our infrastructure and communities to a greater extent. Um, so we'll be doing it in uh, in a in a in a well structured and approachable way. Uh, the primarily about the hazards, like identifying and understanding the hazards which is been involved into this disasters, landslide, floods, or any seismic things. And we have a modeling of those hazard data with some models being used in GIS, those getting integrated in project controls by our risk intelligence, and adjusting those things into our schedule, budgets, and how do we allocate resources to it. And finally, as I said, like resilient delivery is what makes us stand out from where we are. We, as an engineer, should take a pride in delivering the infrastructure projects of high value and for the betterment of our communities. So it's a it gives an immense pride to do be a part of our projects, which is really serving purpose to the community. Um, and by this, I'll be starting with our topic. But if anyone at any moment of the time has any of the questions, please let me know. You can just tell me like, yeah, you have a question on the chats. I'm not quite friendly with the Zoom meeting, but do let me know if you have any questions. You can just interrupt me, and I'm happy to answer your queries. Okay, so the accessibility of the landslide. So now look at this beautiful image. What we have in front of you on the right side is into like Western Ghats. There are many, many, many beautiful green luscious in our Western Ghats. We are pleased when we are part of that environmental where the beauty has been noticed, or we have the um, beauty that lies over here. But just remember that this beauty is lies under a hidden danger. So every year, hundreds of landslides occur here, and it disturbs our lives and the infrastructure to a greater extent. So the Western Ghats have a very steep terrain, and we usually face intense monsoon rains, and it makes it highly susceptible to the landslides. So the combination of natural factors like having steep slopes, rainfall, and the geology creates it a very high risky environment into this. And when we as a family go out or have anything on that side, and then if something happens, it's really not good. This is not is really this is not really what we are should be facing in this. But yeah, the impacts are pretty sad to hear that we have loss of lives, infrastructure gets disrupted for many days, weeks, and yeah, it just run overs significant cost and impacts the schedule of the project. Um, so these impacts extend beyond the environmental damage and also has an increasing exposure to humans as well. So when we build the infrastructure into these areas, like you see a small tower there, that's a transmission line tower. It's not pretty easy to build anything on the slope or the steep terrain, and as well as it goes with the roads as well. So it has to be calculated. It has to be taken into consideration the hazards uh, which will be having into it. So we need to capture those hazards while delivering the projects. So I'll cover in the future slides how do we do that. So yeah, so understanding this accessibility is the first step towards effectively managing the risk assessment and then providing mitigations which is well under the controls. We'll explore more about these things in the coming slide, like how do we identify this risk and integrate them into the project planning. So here we have a comparison between, I've taken the Western Ghats over here. Um, so if you see, the Western Ghats stretches from Maharashtra until Kerala over here. So it has a very big 1600-kilometer coastline. And at the same end, like where I'm currently based in Sydney, Australia, we do have a greater dividing range over here, which stretches right from Queensland, and then it comes down to New South Wales, and then it goes down to Victoria. So even that is like a double than what we have. It's like 3,500-kilometer long Eastern Australia. So in both the cases, the if you see the terrains is more or less same, but Western Ghats is steep with lots of hills and valleys, and we do have a lot of monsoon climate over there. And same goes with Australia, but we have some of the mountain ranges which are very devastating. Like here in New South Wales, you have Blue Mountains, go with the pass in Brisbane. Um, we have a few of other valleys where Lockyer valleys where we have to see the similar kind of environmental impacts. So the difference is what we can see is like Western Ghats is densely populated. It has a lot of infrastructure on it. Whereas in Australia over here, it's sparsely populated. It means like major of the population is towards the cities. That makes a little bit less populated, less prone to hazards and risk in terms of human, we can say, loss. But if you calculate about the infrastructure impact, I believe it would be more or less same. So I'll be giving some case studies in the coming slides as well. So yeah, the risk factors for this landslide, I can categorize that into two major factors. First one is the natural factors, wherein we have very less control. But I could say that, yeah, these are also contributing to the landslide. So we have a steeper slopes, which are more prone to the failure. And that makes this a very challenging environment when we go on site and when we go in investigations. That makes us pretty challenging solutions to bring forward on that. The rock type or lithology, we can say, is like the rock type and the strength also matters. So yeah, it's like basalt will have a better, foundations holding capacity, but in other way, the fine grained soils on those things will not have that much of soil resistivity on it. So the drainage pattern also matters. So it's like poor drainage leads to like the water accumulation and increasing the pore pressure. And finally, it's about the rainfall, which we often get to measure. So if it's a heavy or prolonged rainfall, it would definitely trigger the landslide. It has um, uh, more possibility of it. On the second hand, it's like the anthropogenic factors wherein human plays a key role into playing with some of the natural vulnerabilities. So as first on the list is like the deforestation, as we can see, like a lot of developments is happening, and in that we just cut off all the trees. That reduces the slope stability. And yeah, and the next one is the road cuts and excavation. That's the infrastructure development for us. Like when we do it, it also takes away the slope geometry, and also has takes away the drainage facility, or we can say potentiality. And the quarrying and mining, which disturbs also the natural slope equilibrium. um, and then the settlement expansion, as we say, like yeah, people need space to live, and then yeah, we are just developing it like to a greater extent. So uh, in order to determine any particular factor for this landslide, it's very hard, but we can say that any interaction between the natural or anthropologic thing would definitely trigger it. So understanding both of these factors whenever we go for site development or any projects is very, very essential, and it would help us for an effective mitigation on it. Next slide, I'll run through the factors which feed into the vulnerability assessment models. So yeah, it's like risk isn't just about hazard. Okay, it's about who and what is exposed under that hazard. So landslide vulnerability assessment is a critical step in risk management. It combines three of the components like the probability, exposure, the people who lives there, and the risk, like the vulnerability of it. So how susceptible these assets are in their capacity. Um, so the purpose of this assessment is to identify where and how to prioritize the mitigation and invest it, so that our resources in terms of human or dollars are allocated in the right areas, and we are here to mitigate the highest risk. So prioritizing plays a very key role over here. So whenever we have a number of risks, so there's risk session being carried out during the design stages during pre-mobilization. So understanding what risks are going to trigger it, it's always better to prioritize it so that we have effective management of those risks. Um, so um, getting these vulnerabilities into our schedule, or putting those buffers into our schedule, is a very key aspect, so that we know exactly where are our buffers sitting. It is very good if we place the buffer, and if it's not being used, okay, that's a contingency, we can park it, but it should be allowed in our budget and our schedule. This helps to make our schedule very healthy and our budget little flexible, because we see projects just run above the budget. We can't have the controls on it due to disasters which takes place. And I also agree to some extent that there shouldn't be a lot of fat sitting under the budget, that we just park in something that we think will never happen, or happens once in 100 years. But placing a contingency for those will always help us to mitigate it well at once. I hope I'm going it in a good way. It's not too fast. as I have to cover a lot of a lot of slides here. So we'll look at the key conditioning factors that influence the susceptibility. So the primary factors that influence the landslide susceptibility in the mountainous regions is in the Western Ghats as well is the slope, where steeper slopes increase the gravitational stress, as we thought we covered that, and making them more prone for failure. And lithology and soil structure, which we had just ran through the previous slide. But the proximity to road and streams, like the roads development and contributing to the erosion and saturation, plays a key role over here. So there are some indices which we are using in our industry. That's the normalized difference vegetation index, that's the NDWI. It's a very good sensing tool which measures the vegetation greenness in that particular area, and it helps us to know the health in that area by analyzing how the plants reflect the red or infrared lights, which gives us sensation that it's enough vegetation, less prone to the landslides. And we have a NBR, that's normalized burn ratio. It's an index where we can assess like the wildfire severity, where low values are like mean burned and high values means the healthy ones. And this is where Australia stand out from India, uh, because we have a very intense bushfires. You might be listening in the news as well. In 2025 earlier as well, we had some bushfires. We had in 2021. There's like bushfire is a key role over here, because since those areas are being accommodated by lots of residences, handling them is a challenge to the uh, to the public over here. So in that way, I can say uh, the challenges which over here are more of like getting into the NBR ratio, understanding it so that we have our contingency parked very well. We have the rainfall as well as the critical trigger. It also plays a very vital role. Now, in order to understand the conditioning factors, we'll see in the next step to see how these layers are combined in GI-based models to derive the susceptibility zones. Sorry, yeah. So we have a GIS, remote sensing and zonation methods to categorize the susceptibility mapping. So the weighting and modeling is done by the using some factors like analytic hierarchical process, wherein you take the best outcomes by discussion. It's just based on the experience and discussion outcome which happens over there. And then we can quantify and relatively importance of each conditioning factors can be judged on it. The GIS and remote sensing role is used to integrate these layers while using some key indices like NDI or NBI for moisture and vegetation conditions. And these output is a susceptibility mapping, which helps to know the key critical areas for identifying the more hazard prone areas. And with this identification, we would be linking that or trying to understand how it goes and play the role in project controls, like the roads or transmission lines or dams or all infrastructure projects, to assess the exposure and prioritize the mitigation action. Now that we have identified the key conditioning factors and how we process these factors into actionable insights will be in our next slide. So I hope many of us in the industry standards are aware of this 3x3 risk matrix. And we have 4x4 as well, but to limit the best interest of this session, I have limited this to 3x3 risk matrix. So as we said that we will be listing all the risk during the risk sessions in design, pre-mobilization, maybe due to hazard operations sessions. So we categorize all those risks serially, identify them with the likelihood or how likely is this risk going to happen, and what are its consequences or impact on the community in terms of human loss or schedule impact or cost impact. Um, so this risk matrix is like, if you see on the left hand side, it's like highly unlikely, slightly harmful is where we say it's an insignificant risk, and we do not spend a lot of resources on it. We can just take those away and park aside, but yeah, we can just monitor it, and we can just have an actionable reporting every month on it. As we move towards the right side, extremely harmful and likely, these are the risks uh, which are to be monitored very, very closely. The extremely risk and the high risk items are the projects which may also lead the project failure. So having risk sessions on a monthly basis is advisable, which we as an industry individual should have a practice on it. So after we categorize this resources into our technical hazard analysis, we can say it directly relates with our planning and resource allocation. It also bridges the gap between the geoscience and the project controls. The simple chart helps us to understand where we are currently plotted with the risk on this project. And once we have prioritized this risk band, then the question comes like, how do we integrate them with the project governance? And there we go. We have our risk registers and mapping. So I hope, like in my extensive experience, what I've seen so far is like we have populated risk registers uh, through spreadsheet, through softwares, anything like that. But building or having a very dynamic risk register gives a very healthy indication on our project. So remember that the risk registers are not only for the finance where they just calculate the numbers, but they are for us as well. So we uh, as a planners or as controllers are like individual construction managers, site managers should have the lead to take these things as our duty towards performing this or updating this register. So as we see that we have several columns which are there in the risk register, but I would focus a few of them, like the hazard type. What is the hazard? Whether it's related to the slope failure, debris, human, HSE, anything. What triggers it? What's the cause of it? Like rainfall or some road cuts or some of the challenging or perplex situations on the site. Location, it's better because if you have a huge site, it's better that we have our coordinates linked to it. And likelihood is like, yeah, as I explained, like based on the susceptibility models, and the impact on cost and time is primarily being addressed. And how do we plan to mitigate it? That's the very, very essential thing, because everyone can identify the risk, but mitigation or proposing solution is another aspect of it. Um, and finally, owner. So an owner can be anyone who is responsible for the identifying the risk, or we have another owner for mitigation owner. So one is the risk owner who owns the risk. I believe it's like the project manager who has an ultimate responsibility, but he can delegate it to the further resources like the site manager or anyone who is very much prone to it. And similarly, the mitigation owner can be any individuals working at site who have the specialty or expertise in that matter. With this, like, it ensures that we have a transparency and full accountability of all the resources on our job. Um, so Yeah, I'll just move ahead like on the mapping of the risk. Like after we identify this, the next step is like how do we put those things into scheduling and like cost control. So over here, I'm just saying that it was a big subject of landslide. We are just going narrowing down, and then we are channelizing all our energy to the right path into the project controls. Um, so we have several tools like what we have for uh, scheduling softwares or budgeting softwares. Similarly, we have tools in risk as well. So, uh, like there are Saffron, Monte Carlo, different analysis which they run through, Primavera risk analysis. So yeah, so it is good that if your schedule reflects the upcoming seasonal pattern or upcoming risk, it is really a good schedule then in that case. So yeah, so the key strategies to put that in is like putting them some seasonal windows in it, like having a buffer or contingencies into monsoon or other weather sensitive periods into our project calendar. We do have here as a push fire, wherein we just have to be like, we don't do any kind of so the government over here has an emphasis on it that do not use any fire in that case, like if the temperature is soaring high, like 37. Right now as well, here we are having 39, and then we are just asked like, okay, you shouldn't be doing anything on the environment, which would be triggering the bushfires. So yeah, we can put those seasonal buffers into our schedule. Monte Carlo simulation is like using the probabilistic analysis to model how an uncertainty task runs the schedule. So this provides a range of possible outcomes rather than a single deterministic schedules. So it just like runs through a lot of probabilities, permutation and combination kind of a thing, and then yeah, it gives you like what are the more things which will be driving this risk. Um, so we have Delta Acumen and Whiskey for like planning and contingency allocation. By using these softwares, we have benefits in like improving our deliveries, which gives us a confidence that yeah, we are good with this. If it happens something, we are ready to face it. It enables the proactive contingency planning, which lacks in most of the schedule. Like it's like something happens and then we do it. So it's better that we proactively identify it and try to uh, put those into our program. So we have now seen like okay, the risks are identified, the risks are categorized, identified, located, and it feeds into our program. Um, Now let's see the resilient design measures that complement these strategies. So just a little bit on the parallel side of this is like the design aspect. So this slide focuses more on the engineering and ecological measures in order to reduce the landslide risk. Everything cannot be done on paper, but yes, we can take some measures to reduce the impact of this landslide. So, sorry, the drainage control is like emphasizing that how do we manage the surface and subsurface water. Uh, that's the first line of defense, I would say, uh, because if the drainage is poor, it would often trigger the slope failures, which in most of the cases you have seen. Then retaining structures like gravity walls, reinforced earth walls, or like gabions, stabilizing slopes near road and construction sites. Many of you have been witnessed so many of gabion walls or retaining structures, which is trying to avoid the landslides. Some of the soil nailing and micropiles matter, like these are some of the advanced technique, but yeah, it is very effective for reinforcing into the weak slopes. Especially this would be more useful wherein we have high risk in the landslide zones. And it's good that the vegetation restoration is done. So bioengineering plays a key role over here, like planting deep-rooted species to avoid the soil erosion and helps to cohesibility of the soil. Um, it also has some solutions regarding on the factor of safety improvements, like it's generally considered as 1.3, but it may vary. It is very on project to project. It's not a thumb rule kind of a thing, but yeah, we can consider that as an effective measures into our design by building a resilient slope stabilization into our design phase itself. Um, So moving on to the next slide. Any questions so far? Okay.
Yes, sir. You can continue,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So as I said, resilience starts at design and it continues through construction, operation, and all phases of the infrastructure life. So the life cycle integration means embedding all the geohazard risk considerations into all phases of the project design. Um, and start with the hazard screening, alternative selections, constructability under monsoon. This helps us to evaluate alternate alignments and construction methods that minimize exposure to landslide prone zones. Um, it also gives us the challenge that whether it really can withstand our design in these seasonal challenges. In the construction phase, developing the method statements that includes weather triggers and emergency response plan. So here we have at many of the sites we have method statements being derived. So method statements is a very key thing. Like we have um, the job to do and we have to do that in a particular way, and it captures the existing conditions of the site. So a, a very specific tailor-made method statements helps the ground team to understand or to have their clear role on site. um, uh, it also gives the vision of the engineers over there what to do, what happens, and yeah, it really works well. Um, Operation phase is like the construction, post-construction, wherein the monitoring becomes very critical, using instruments like the inclimeters or rainfall gauges to track the slope stability. And when this gets combined in the scheduled maintenance cycles, it ensures the delivery of the infrastructures in the long-term time. Um, so yeah, the key message over here on this slide is like integration of all the life cycle transforms the hazard knowledge into the actionable controls and reducing the cost one, and also it helps to improve the safety. We have seen like how life cycle integration strengthens the resilience across design. Now let's look at some of the real world examples which we have in here. Okay, this is the case study which I picked up for 2018 Kerala floods and landslide. So far, whatever we have gone through it, you can see that some or other way, it just has the triggers, or it just has the inputs to some of these disasters which had happened in past. So it was a wake-up call for all of us when this happened, and infrastructure resilience means a lot in this case. So Kerala had experienced the worst flood in the history, and it was triggered mainly due to the monsoon rainfall, which had caused the widespread flooding and slope areas across all the Western Ghats, across the Western Ghats region in Kerala. The scale of this magnitude was like around 400 landslides were reported, and it was severely, all the, like most of the infrastructures over there were severely impacted with this. The transportation networks, the communities, there was total havoc. And the human impact, the human losses, that's the tangible thing which you can see that this is where it hurts a lot to us. 483 fatalities were recorded, and there were thousands of homes which were displaced, and there was a long-term socio-economic disruption due to this. In terms of economic loss, that's where we measure it in terms of the budget. So it had gone around 8.8 billion Australian dollars and like around crores in Indian rupees. But that was a massive burden um, to recover and reconstruct these assets. If you see on the slide, the left, the quadrilateral of the photos, the four photos, if you see on the top left side, there's the widespread destruction. You can see like the how the homes were destroyed. Rescuers were having their efforts countless days and nights into it. So the terrain, if you see on the slide just below it, you see the hillside scars. That's where the steep slopes were there. It experienced um, the uh, landslides over there. It really looks very scary to me. And in order to find like the fatalities over there, the search operations and search rescues were carried out. So if you see the timeline over here, it's like in June 2018 where the monsoons were invaded and there was heavy rainfall. That's the big one. And then in mid-July, since there was heavy rainfall, the rivers were swelled out and all the floodings in the low-lying areas triggered. And it still continued, the monsoon still continued until August, early August 2018, where it triggered the slow failures in the districts of Kerala, in Wayanad and Idukki. And that's why it hurt, that's why it hurted. And then late August, the rescuers and relief operations were carried out by NDRF and armies, by the Indian armies and local agencies, and thousands were evacuated. So you see, this is the catastrophic floods which had happened, and in order to mitigate it, or in order to trigger this off, like resilient infrastructures have to be built in, so that we do avoid a lot of uh, damages in our communities. So the lesson learned, which we can think on this case study, was mostly about the hazard mapping and how do we integrate that into our design and planning stage. And there is a definite need for resilient infrastructures, and we do should have the slope stabilization measures like what we saw in the previous slides. And for this, I would just say that the community awareness and early warning systems, if we have in that place, it would be a better controlling. So this is what like we see the proactive risk assessment and project controls plays a very critical part in any type of the infrastructure projects, especially in the Western Ghats region. Uh, the next slide is the 2011 Queensland floods and landslide which had occurred here. So similar to that, we also have the Great Dividing Range here, and Australia faced its own challenge during this floods, where different contexts was there, but similar lessons, I could say. So this was the most significant and natural disasters in the Australia's recent history, and it was also triggered due to the prolonged La Nina phase. So La Nina is basically the rains, like we do have monsoon rains coming in. So La Nina is kind of a similar rains entering into Queensland. This causes extreme and extremely high, persistent rainfall across the eastern Australia face. I'm going to explain on these slides of it. So With this similar, if you see the pattern over there, also we had a lot of rain happening. Over here also we see November to December in 2010 persistent rainfalls were beginning, and in early January 2021 major rivers were overflown because of this flooding. um, and then like around 10 to 13, like 11th of January onwards, the flash flood hits some of the region in Toowoomba, and Lockyer Valley was the one which was affected the most. People living over there had a lot of issues. The infrastructure was totally disrupted. We had challenges over there in the power, water, the basic amenities over there. So the scale and impact, if you see, was like primarily because of the flooding and landslides. So these slow areas had a compounding effect on the disruption of the infrastructure and communities living there. Um, if you see the total estimated damage, it was around 2.38 billion Australian dollars, which is comparatively less. It's just like 25%, more or less 25% of what we had in Western, like in Kerala. I have a comparison slide which I'll run through it in the coming phase. So the floods, and it also resulted around 33 human loss, the fatalities on it. So though it's less, but as I said, it's due to the sparsely populated region here in Australia. Most of the population lives in the city or nearby city. Um, but then 233 lives is a very heavy number. What do we have in this slide? If you see, like the roads getting occupied with the floods, all the houses over there have flooding with the water level over here, and then we have the recovery operations and carried out over here after the second week of the Jan, and then until the late January, the recovery operations was carried out and the damage was assessed. It also took a lot of nights over here as well to recover from those phases and to rebuild the facilities over here again. So the lesson learned over here is also about the seasonal risk planning, which is like we should have it in this case. And it is better to incorporate the contingency reserves and also have a flexible schedule which can mitigate the cascading effects of these disasters. As we say, like the monitoring systems, if in place, would have been a better indicator to know and get to know like proper measures on it. It would just be a heads up for us to know what we have to do, what not to do. And I think Australia is now is well in place in that. We have several channels running through. They just give the heads up to the people living there and make sure that they're aware of the upcoming seasonal challenges. And I hope India is also now well geared up for this. So I just run through the comparison table over here. So if you see the numbers, so we had around 400 plus landslides in Kerala, and over here we had, I don't have the count of it, but yeah, it was a widespread floods because of the river channels over here, and had localized landslides living in there in the valley. So the fatalities number as compared to Kerala is less because India is densely populated. We have people living in hilly and different regions, and that's the reason the numbers look very high. As the numbers go high, the infrastructure, the economic loss also is being measured high in place of India. It's like around 8.8 billion Australian dollars with compared to Queensland in Australia, which is around 2.38 billion. If you see the terrain impact, it's the steep slopes and deforestation, which had worsened the risk, which has been the key factors over here. And for Brisbane, we have the landslides mainly in the Lockyer Valley. That is where it was impacted the most. Lesson learned in Kerala and Queensland more or less same, but I could say that the combined lesson learned would be an effective derivation of this slide. Hazard mapping is very key and essential. Developing a resilient design uh, things into our infrastructures, like we see that putting the factor of safety and some mitigation measures, some stabilization methods, seasonal risk planning. Yeah, it knows that the monsoon are there. We have to have our contingency reserved for it. We should have the budget allocated for it, and yeah, there are many other inclement weathers, the storm, thunderstorms, those things. It's better that we capture all the things in our program. And yeah, this is the comparison table. Okay. So as I said, like we had, like if we have the sensors or if we have some trigger points, it's a better way to save the lives. So sensors can save the life, but yeah, we need to listen to them. So monitoring systems are very critical for proactive risk management in the landslide prone areas. They help to detect the early signs of instability of the slope and also trigger timely interventions before the hazards escalate. See this the rainfall gauges which track the precipitation, intensity of the rainfall, and measures like the how much the rainfall has been recorded, which gives a key trigger for the landslide. Piezometers are also to measure the pore water pressure into the soil, which is also indicating saturation level, which also plays a key role into the uh, landslide. Incliminators are the sensors which help to detect the ground movement and slope deformation trends. So if we have those things in place, it will help us to um, sense the threat or analyze the impact of the threat which is potentially be happening over there. These threshold and triggers like emphasize the predefined thresholds in our schedules and link into our project controls. Um, so they activate the contingency plan uh, or high risk activities which are sitting in our program. So if we have the sensors in place, we know that, oh, yes, we are going to get this thing. Okay, activate our mitigation controls in it. Okay, what we have to do is put the mitigation controls over here, take the HSE, inform the society. This is what is going to be there. So all the mitigation measures, we can just trigger it up, and it would be a better way for allowing us to mitigate the risk, not certain like the fatalities to a greater extent can be avoided. So with this integration into the dashboard, which help us to understand some of the real-time data and helps us or our management to take the quick decision on it. So in order to give or go ahead on that particular nodes in terms of budget and uh, schedule, it's better that we have our datas well occupied and it feeds in all the real ground scenarios and helps the project teams or project managers to take the decision. Um, with the project controls, we see the benefits like it reduces the schedule delays and it reduces the cost overruns by enabling the early mitigation. It also supports compliance with the safety standards and improves the resilience during the extreme weather events. Monitoring and early warning systems also transform the hazard knowledge and actionable insights into the risk-adjusted project delivery model. So now that we have seen the how monitoring and early warning system um, help us in anticipating and responding to the hazards, the next step is to translate these into the financial resilience, like the cost part. which is a which is where everything sits in there. Um, so let's move into the cost control and contingency strategies and explore how risk-based budgeting and reserves can protect our project viabilities when an unexpected event happens at site. Okay, so this is the slide which explains us about how the dollars on our project are to be spent, and at the same time, how we can save millions of dollars in recovery, and at the same end, how the human fatalities can also be controlled. So, cost controlling in the landslide prone projects is not only about budgeting, but it's about understanding and anticipating the uncertainty and allocating the resources strategically. Um, so, we assign the contingency based on the risk bands. What we see was a 3 by 3 matrix. This is just a shorter version, or I could say a compressed version of how we categorize the dollars onto the risk. So if you see the high risk, that is the highest contingency. So that's the dollars which are being sitting on the very high amount in order to address those uncertain events. The moderate risk are the ones which is like in the mid range. So we have dollars to mitigate that as well, but yeah, to a lesser extent than high risk one. The lower risk are the risk wherein the dollar amount is very less, and um, but it's always better to monitor them every month. We never know when a low risk comes to the moderate risk or climbs up to the high risk. So we assign this contingency based on the high risk zones, and it ensures that the funds are allocated at the right hazards, which are most likely impacting our project. And beyond all these things, we do have management reserves. So management reserves are something which is unknown, and to the unknowns, we don't know those unpredictable events when can derail our schedules and budget. But we maintain a management reserve every project, and it's a good practice to have those management reserves which are well under control of the management as a term. But if we have to use it for something to bring the project right on track, we have to use it. And we do have the particular protocols on getting those management reserves into the project, and it depends on organization to organization. Integration of this with the earned value is very key aspect. So as you know, the earned value is basically measuring the project progress based on the dollars which we spent. So if you spend something, you have to earn something on the other end. So when we reserve the dollars for a particular risk, which was anticipated in the month of June, and yes, the risk had eventuated, we spend the dollars on it to mitigate it, we earn that amount. So basically, it's not that like the dollars contingency sitting into that pocket, into that bucket, it just stays into it forever. No. If the risk has eventuated, use it. Use it to mitigate it and get the project right on track so that we get those projects delivered within the agreed time frames and budget. So that's where this goes. Like, um, even though the project is setting for 7 days because of the flood or because of the inclement weathers like monsoon or wet weather, yeah, use that to trigger to do some of your works, dewatering, stuff like that, some extra measures, and gain the progress on it. This is also a good um, strategy in to put that cost into that particular phase of the project. So the goal over here is proactive financial planning to link particular hazard with the cost, and that is a little sensible schedule, we can say. So the cost control ensures financial resilience of the project, but the timing is equally critical. And especially in these critical landslide prone regions, it's better we do it very carefully. Next, we'll look. So this was the cost and budgeting part. Now we'll see the time, how the scheduling tactics are to be addressed by putting some calendars and alternative methods on the projects to keep the project on track for the high risk periods. Okay, so being a scheduler, initially I was also like not too aware of this, um, but now with this rich experience through different regions of the world, we have scheduling which has, if we have a right scheduling measures in our program, it can definitely lead the project to a success. So smart scheduling can outsmart the seasonal variations or exceptions to the monsoons or any of the disasters we have in. So scheduling in landslide provisions is like not sequencing only about the task, but it's about anticipating the environmental triggers. If you think that there would be a welding work going to come, do not like that provide enough contingency in the month of June so that we know that okay, we are going to have these works. For example, foundations. We are going to have the foundation work going on that particular time. Just be cautious that yeah, that's a June period, and then we need to park extra contingency or buffers on it. And we do have seasonal calendars as well, so that helps us to consider the working hours as well. Like summer times we have the daylight is more, parking extra time for the resources, whereas vice versa goes into the winter season. So yeah, so one can also have seasonal windows calendars that will avoid excavation during the peak hours, like I said, for foundations, and it will build some of the buffer directly into the schedule. And these can be also be mentioned in our basis of assumptions while drafting the schedule. So we do have certain protocols while developing the schedule. So it's a good practice to record all these buffers. So during our delays, extra claims, or EOTs, it does play a vital role. Then we have the critical chain buffers like to absorb delays caused by unexpected weather events. So we do have an agreement with the government, with the projects which we take, or we like with the client, like anything like in general terms, I'm saying like there is a contract and we do have some delays being mentioned in that contract. So yeah, consider that as an activity in the program, and that helps us to take out the contingency as and when required basis. This not only helps to tackle the delays, but it helps to address our project timelines. Um, we can also have some staggered mobilization into our resources when we know that the seasonal events are going to appear. So the resources can also be staggered in a way that doesn't really bulge our project during that period. Alternative methods is like considering modular construction or offsite preparation. So it's like depend on project to project. So if you have a project wherein welding is very critical, okay, then build a shed by itself and then make sure that it just goes into that particular period throughout the shed. Like you have a dedicated resources into it, and you can mitigate your your slippage time or cost into that period during that period. Also, we can resequence the high-rise task, as I said, the foundations or anything related to the slope cutting. Maybe in the road works, you have slope to cut. Better not to do that job. Just push that with a contingency in that, and highly likely that carry out the other project task. So this is where the scheduling plays a key role. Like this is where we need to go hand on hand. Like, yeah, if you can't do this, just be ready with the other task. So Yeah, so these tactics and all those things integrate hazard knowledge into project controls, and it ensures the resilience and cost efficiency into it. So now we have explored the risk registers, risk, cost, schedule. I'll move to the next section, like how we collaborate these models and enhance risk management and decision making. So resilience is basically the team sport. Everyone has to contribute. Everyone does contribute in some or other way. So geohazard risk management is not just a technical exercise. It's a collaborative process between different stakeholders involved into the project. And it's a joint efforts between different industry, academia as well. Um, so for example, this one, the data sharing MOUs, it helps formal agreements, ensures that the geological, hydrological, and infrastructure data are flowing seamless between the stakeholders. And we do have collaborative site investigation, which also improves the model accuracy and reduce the duplication of efforts. So, like I was saying, that if we carry out something in team spirit, it would be good. Sharing of knowledge helps to understand, helps to have the strength and weakness of other stakeholder, and it strengthens the outcome of the exercise. Community inputs, yeah, local knowledge like such as the historical landslide patterns and microtopography. It also adds the context of um, remote sensing, which alone cannot be captured. Risk dashboards help us to know the real-time visibility of hazard indicators, and the emphasize like the outcomes of this is not to emphasize something which is very theoretical, but build a model which builds trust, accelerates the decision making, and ensures that mitigation strategies are well in place. So yeah, this is what it is like. After you do everything, discuss, collaborate with different people, get those things into a proper document in it. um, This is the data to decision. You can say like six step roadmap. This is on a very high level, but yeah, like data, we collect all the data collection like through different sources, model it through different techniques. Like ASP, what I said, is based on the discussions. Validate, yeah, we have to validate whether the accuracy of the data is right, wrong, how to what extent it is correct. Accessibility bands is based on the risk categories: high, low, medium, high. Integrate those things into the project controls. The risk register is formed, and then you have the cost in that, and then you have the schedule integrators in it. And when we get all these things, we integrate into the monitoring and reforecasting, which ensures that there is a dynamic updates of the conditions. So this is just a framework which bridges the science and project management for delivering a resilient infrastructure, I could say. Um, how these translate into an actionable insights is what is my next slide on. So it's like what we have is like is regarding whatever we learned so far is like Western Ghats landslide vulnerability was a multi-factor dependent. It's not dependent on one key reason. So it's a complex interplay of terrain, rainfall, and mixed use of land and human interventions. Like I said, the anthropologic, some of the natural factors do contribute here. And it's on us, like if we can't take an effective measures on it, um, it's always better. So the role of validating the models like AHP is analytic hierarchy process, wherein we use the tools in order to make our decision, that will help the management to take the stand on the go ahead of this um, particular challenging situation. Um, Integration of these into project controls, like what I was telling you in the previous slide is risk-adjusted scheduling. So we have dollars into our program that has to be plotted into the right slot of the project. Um, and by this, I don't mean you can't restrict to the seasonal, but there are many challenges on the project itself wherein um, you have some uncertainty due to some another project, you have some challenges due to resources. So anything which has anything to do with the interest of the project has to be listed in. Uh, but limiting my discussion to this Western Ghats landslide, so I would say that whatever are the trigger points should be very well captured to have a very nice and healthy schedule. Um, so Yeah, I mean, this is where it is like we started with the a very big topic of landslides, how it happens, uh, where it's happening, some of the case studies we took away. We learned some lessons through that case studies. We thought of mapping it out on the schedule by using different tools, and then we got those together integrated in our cost and schedule perspective of this delivery. And that brings to the end of the session. And uh, I would say that, sorry, yeah, so that I'm for any questions which you have on this session. But I'd just like to sum it up for you, like, or if there is any question, just let me know. I'll just give you a minute and then I can close my script on it. Any questions?
Participant, do you have any questions? If you have, unmute yourself and ask question.
Okay, participant. If somebody want to give a feedback also, then we welcome for your feedback.
Yeah, I'm happy for
Sir,
that as
there
well.
is a question from VP Vishal Kumbhar. In which way AI tools are used for landslide disaster mitigation?
Yeah, look, like regarding this AI, it's a very interesting question. That's what is happening every now and then. So the projects which I have worked on it is quite related to the tools, which is very generic, like I said, the Saffron, Primavera risk analysis. Those are the tools which we are currently using on it in order to address the challenges of the landslide. There is some Monte Carlo probabilities run through it. So those are the softwares currently we are using. But as we are picking up in this AI world, I would definitely be looking forward for some of the solutions on it through AI. But this is what I believe. I have worked on these ones, and they pretty much give a lot of information and help us to understand really what are the probabilities of a risk happening on that particular site. So to answer your question, AI into these models is currently not yet integrated into it. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you give the one example for this based on the AHP analysis, analytical hierarchy process?
Yeah. So
You
over
mean
here,
only
like,
short example only, if possible.
Yeah, so AHP is like analytical, which I said to you. So if you had listened, like it is mostly getting the discussions outcome of a particular event. So we do have carried out some of the sessions during the HAZOP analysis in it. So we run across through various scenarios, discuss some scenarios with the specialist or experts, subject expert matters, we say SEMs, and with that discussion, we take away key points on it, saying that okay, what are we going to have this risk playing role into our project delivery. So during HAZOP analysis, to give you an example, is more of like the interface issue. That's the challenging one. So if you are into a brownfield site, wherein you have a number of stakeholders working with you, so you have your project delivery, you have other project deliveries happening over there. So prioritizing becomes a key aspect. So we have different stakeholder project sitting over there, and then we categorize all those risks considering the priority of those works. We list those risks, we categorize those risks, and then we address it. So more of like I used it in the oil and gas industries, wherein the HAZOP meetings are carried out. There is where it really plays a role. It really played a role. I hope I answered you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, there is one more question from Dilip P. Which methods will be good to do land suitability analysis for urban planning?
I think those are a little bit of a technical kind of a thing, and it depends on project to project. Like I said, the first thing was related to the data. That is where the key thing relates. So what type of data you have, what type of nature of the soil we have, based on that, our decision on that particular method will be applied. And being on that particular topic, I would be happy to answer something related to register, like risk triggering out or controlling or scheduling. So those things what you have pointed out will then derive the aspect into the risk, schedule, and control measures on it. So yeah, so it all depends based on the project to project, location wise. Like you see, the great dividing range is like around 3,600 kilometers, but the soil conditions here in some of the mountainous region in Blue Mountains is totally different than what we have in Queensland. That's because the nature, the terrain, so it is changing in every now and then area where we moved on from different zones. So I believe that is where we need to have appropriate data to be considered in. And then, so here we say like data, model it, validate it, and then categorize it, and then put that in controls. So your question lies onto the first one, like data. That's where we have to analyze it and then come with a particular model and then derive the method.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Is it like something I'm missing? Because are the questions being asked into that into the chat? Because I'm, as I said, like
Yes,
this
sir.
Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Some participant ask question from the chat box also, and
Okay.
our colleague Kumtekar madam just read it. Okay, I think okay. So once again, I thank you, sir, for your insightful and
Yeah.
thought-provoking session. On
Yes.
behalf
I
of
would
the
just take a minute, Rajendra,
yes, sir.
if you don't.
Yes, yes, yes.
I hope you're not. Yeah. Sorry. I just give a closing script before I. I'm very happy for getting those questions, and I hope I have answered to the best of my knowledge. And I would thank you all the participants for your time and your engagement with me today. So yeah, we have explored some of the landslide vulnerabilities in the Western Ghats of India and some of the geological conditions over here in Great Dividing Range in Australia. Both are different things, but it was my pleasure to present to you the different terrains, different seasonal things to you. So hazard knowledge is like, it's say that it's not just academic. We have to have a practical tool for planning, scheduling, and then integrating that in, considering that as a risk. By combining the validated models also and with proactive project controls, we can certainly reduce the uncertainty and improve the outcomes. So yeah, I've seen some chat in that I've got to see some of my details. So I'll share the thing into the chat. I'll just get no to that software bit, and I'll text you my details over there. And yeah, thank you. Thanks again, once again, for your answers. Yeah, Rajendra, you can continue.
Yes, sir. And once again, thank you, sir. Definitely, this particular session is very insightful and thought-provoking session. On behalf of the organizing team, I sincerely thank you for sharing your valuable knowledge and experience. I also thanks all participants for their active participation and interaction. We look forward for the next, you can say, next help from your side, sir, because our departmental project outcome is related to the disaster management and mitigation. So definitely we connect in future also, sir.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to help you on this. No problem. That's my expertise. Like I said, any disasters, it's the nature. Okay, any disasters can be there, but capturing those and considering those into our scheduling or controlling in the risk aspect makes the resilience of delivery more impact and more powerful.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So yeah.
Thank you. So now I declare this particular session is over here. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye.